Yeah, as you might have figured out, this is chapter 6 of the Language and Music book. And in this chapter, we're going to talk about the minor scale, minor keys. That piece, of course, is the Bach Toccata in D minor. It's probably the favorite choice for all the carnival spook houses and any kind of scary places in the world. That's pretty cliche. But it is amazing how just that sort of association really helps us identify the difference between major and minor. You know, every little kid who would walk in the room and hear that, they might not know a thing about music theory, but they definitely would hear that and think creepy, monster, danger. And it's that association through movies, through television, we grow up with, and we start to identify minor keys with the bad guys, major keys with the good guys. One of my favorite Far Side cartoons is the the one in the Wild West saloon where there's the piano player and the banjo player, and Black Bart, the evil outlaw, comes busting through the doors of the saloon, and the piano player looks at the banjo player and says, "Hey Willie, here come the bad guys, minor key." But that's pretty much how it works. Our brains associate minor keys with danger and bad guys, like Darth Vader versus Luke Skywalker kind of thing. But I mean, it's kind of too bad that it's that way, because actually minor keys can also have a real sort of awesome sound to them. They can have a more contemplative, more get inside myself and think about this, more meditative kind of feeling. So there's a lot of uses. Minor keys shouldn't just be for the bad guys. I mentioned the Star Wars themes. Luke Skywalker versus Darth Vader. That's a real obvious difference between C major and C minor. So it's pretty obvious when you know Darth Vader is going to walk on the scene and you hear that music start to come in. Pretty obvious, and that obvious difference is the difference between major and minor. Another interesting one would be take the song Mighty to Save, for instance. Our God is mighty to save. Obviously in major versus G minor. Our God is an awesome God. That's the difference between G major and G minor. Now bear in mind that I would guess 90%, 95% of the modern worship music that we do is in major keys. But there's a few songs that are in minor. Another one that comes to mind is the Brooke Fraser song she did with Hillsong, Desert Song. This is my prayer in the desert. So, I mean, to me, when I think of that song, it's a minor key, but my prayer in the desert, when all that's within me is dry, it's good. It's a good setting for a minor key, because it's kind of crying out to say, it's my prayer in the desert when all is dry. But interesting point though, that's a song, and a lot of songs do this, where the verse is in minor, where you're crying out in the desert, but then when it comes to the resolution in the chorus, I will give praise, I will give praise, I will give praise. Then it goes to what's called the relative major key. See, minor keys and major keys, there's a relationship called the relative minor. And what that is, think of it this way. Let's go back to our home key C major. Here's C major. Now you remember C major has no sharps or flats, right? The key signature, no sharps or flats. It's all white keys. Well, there's a relative minor key to C major, and that relative minor key is A minor. You'll always find, it's a good rule to grab, it's in your language and music workbook, the relative minor is always found a minor third below the major. So let's look. Here's middle C. That's the root note of C major. The relative minor that shares the same key signature is found a minor third below on A. So C major and A minor. That's the relative minor. Let's go to G, for instance. Here's G. G major. The relative minor is E minor. So those two keys share the same key signature. And if you look at the chart in the book, you'll see there's all the key signatures there with the major key and the relative minor key. Now, let's do what we did before. Remember when we started off on the major scale? We started on middle C and we walked up the white keys. Let's do the same thing. We're going to go to A minor. So we're going to start on A, and we're going to walk up the white keys. So if you did that, you've just played your first A minor scale. Now, if you look at that chart in the book of the whole steps and half steps, just like major scales, minor scales have a specific set of whole steps and half steps that make a minor scale minor. And the main key you have to remember is it's the quality of the third. This is one of those axioms you just have to memorize. It's the quality of the third degree that makes a minor scale minor. So that's the major third in C major. That's the minor third in A minor. And this is true of every minor key you come to. It's going to have the lowered version. Now watch this for instance. If I just stay on C for a second, there's that major third. If I lower that by a half step, now I'm implying C minor. Remember that, that little bit that I showed you before with 2001? C major to C minor. I'm just lowering the third a half step. C minor to C major, I'm raising the third back a half step. That is the difference between major and minor. It's the quality of the third. Okay? That's true of all minor keys. Now, if you notice, there's some other things about that A minor scale that sound a little bit different. It's always going to be that lowered third. The sixth and the seventh, there's a few subtle variations, and there's three terms you need to know. What we just played here on A, that's called natural minor. Now, if somebody says just play an A minor, it's implied that they mean a natural minor. Natural minor because it's all the natural white keys. Now, a couple of variations you need to know. The two you need to know are harmonic minor. So there's natural minor, there's harmonic minor, and melodic minor. Now, if you're in college theory class, you probably remember going crazy about the specific rules of these. In modern rock, pop, modern worship music, it's not really that big a deal. Songs can sort of hint at harmonic minor, they can hint at melodic minor, so don't get hung up on it. But just so you know, here's what the difference is. Start with A natural minor. In harmonic minor, instead of lowering the sixth and seventh, like natural minor, there's your lowered sixth, your lowered seventh, and then the octave. Harmonic minor keeps the seventh high, just like it would be in a major scale. Sounds like this. Now automatically when we hear that, our brains kind of get this Middle Eastern, Eastern European kind of vibe just because that's the music that features that harmonic scale a lot. Right? Now, the point is, if you're playing an A minor, if you don't hear that seventh, you don't really know if it's natural minor or harmonic minor. It's not until you hear the seventh. Go back to that example before when we were playing Our God is an awesome. There's that sharp seventh. So that cadence of awesome God features harmonic minor. Now the other version, melodic minor, this is a really interesting one. It's called melodic minor simply because it depends which direction the melody is going. When the melody goes up, you raise the sixth and seventh. When the melody goes down, you lower the sixth and seventh. A good example of that, the song Yesterday, Lennon and McCartney, right? Walking up, see how I raised those two notes? I'm playing in C, so normally it'd be all white keys, but when I walk up melody, I'm sharping the 6th and 7th. Now, when I walk down, now I'm playing the lowered versions. So that's the difference in melodic minor. When the melody goes up, you raise the 6th and 7th. Melody goes down, you lower the 6th and 7th, just like natural minor. But again, bear in mind that pop rock music, you could jump in and out of those different melodic modes all the time. So don't get hung up about it. It's just good to know those terms. Now, in the later chapter, we're going to study, we're going to dive into some real unique scales. We're going to dive into the modes. We're going to talk about some other variations of minor. There's things like gypsy minor and Phrygian minor, a lot of variations that, to our ears have these, kind of real particular cultural, international sort of flavor to them. But we'll dive into that later. But scope out the workbook, check out the natural minor, check out the relative minor key signatures. There's also parallel minor. Parallel minor is basically just starting on the same root. Like here's C major. The parallel minor is just C minor. So check out that chart as well. A good thing about parallel minor is it's pretty obvious right there. You can tell by the key signature exactly what makes major into minor. When you look at C major, no sharps or flats. You look at C minor, it has 3 flats, 3 lowered notes. The 3rd, E is lowered. 6th, the A is lowered. 7th, the B is lowered. So that's how you change major to minor. You lower the 3rd, the 6th, and the 7th. Check it out in your workbook.